Driving home late at night, everything was quiet except for my car moving down the street. My name's Alex. I'm 30, and I love taking pictures of everything interesting I see. That night, I had all my camera gear with me in the back seat, feeling happy about the photos I took. Usually I enjoy these quiet drives. They give me time to think about my pictures. But that night wasn't like the others. As I got closer to my apartment, I saw a group of guys hanging around the parking lot. This wasn't totally new. I've seen people around before, even at night, and I guess they've seen me too, coming back from my late-night photo sessions. Maybe they noticed before how I always have my camera and stuff with me. Seeing them there made me feel a bit uneasy. It's not like they were doing anything scary, but it's late. And here they are, just standing around. And with them possibly knowing I carry expensive gear, I couldn't help but feel a bit worried. I tried to shake off the worry, telling myself it was nothing. They were probably just hanging out. But I couldn't ignore the feeling in my stomach that something was off tonight. As I pulled into the parking lot, my usual spot was taken, so I ended up parking a bit closer to where the group of guys was standing. I turned off my car and sat there for a moment, watching them from a distance. They were laughing and talking loudly, not really doing anything wrong, but I still felt that weird feeling in my gut. Before I got out of the car, I made sure my camera gear was hidden under a jacket in the back seat. I remembered now how I'd seen some of these guys around before. They might have noticed me coming back late other nights with my camera bag. Maybe they were just curious, but I didn't want to take any chances. I grabbed my keys and phone, thinking I'd just head straight to my apartment building and avoid any trouble. As I stepped out of the car, I tried to act cool, like I hadn't noticed them, but it was hard to ignore the feeling that I was being watched. Just as I locked my car and started walking away, I heard one of them shout, "Hey, isn't that the photographer guy?" My heart skipped a beat. I kept walking, pretending I didn't hear them, but then I heard footsteps. They were following me. I quickened my pace, hoping to make it to the building's entrance before they caught up. "Hey man, wait up. We just want to talk," one of them called out. But something in his tone didn't sound friendly. It sounded like trouble. Now, I was really starting to get scared. I wasn't just worried about my camera gear anymore. I was worried about what these guys might do. I remembered my mom always telling me, if you ever feel in danger, run. So that's what I did. I ran as fast as I could, hearing their footsteps getting louder behind me. As I ran, my breath came out in sharp puffs, and my legs felt like jelly. I could hear them laughing and shouting behind me, "Come on, we're just messing with you." But I wasn't about to stop and find out if that was true. The entrance to my building seemed miles away, and I wished I'd paid more attention in gym class when we had to run laps. Suddenly, one of them was too close for comfort. I could hear his footsteps right behind me, and panic surged through my body. In a desperate move, I veered off the path and ducked behind a parked car. My heart was hammering in my chest as I squeezed myself into the smallest ball possible, trying not to make a sound. For a moment, everything was silent except for my heavy breathing. Then I heard their footsteps slow down, wandering back and forth as they searched for me. "Where'd he go?" one of them asked, sounding more annoyed than curious now. "Forget it, man. He's gone," another voice replied, and I felt a wave of relief wash over me. But I didn't move, not yet. I waited, counting to 100 in my head, trying to calm down. When I finally peeked out, the parking lot was empty. They had given up and left. I crawled out from under the car, my clothes dirty and my hands shaking. I didn't care about looking cool or calm now. I just wanted to be safe inside my apartment. I sprinted the last few yards to the entrance, punching in the security code with trembling fingers. Once inside, I leaned against the door, trying to catch my breath and let the reality of what had just happened sink in. I was safe, but the fear and adrenaline rush were slow to fade. The next day, I made a report to the building's security, describing the group of guys and what had happened. They promised to keep an eye out, and I promised myself to be more careful in the future. I knew I'd continue my night photography, but maybe I'd stick to well-lit areas for a while. After a long shift at the restaurant, the night was finally winding down, My name's Jordan, 28 years old, a chef who's no stranger to the late hours of the city's bustling culinary scene. As I locked up the kitchen and said goodbye to the last of my co-workers, the silence of the empty streets outside was a welcome change from the clatter and chatter of pots, pans, and dinner service. The drive home was my time to decompress, the car's interior a small sanctuary where thoughts of the day could unravel and float away. The city at night felt like a different world, one where the day's urgency faded into the background, replaced by the tranquil glow of streetlights and the occasional flicker of neon signs. This route, with its familiar turns and landmarks, had become a comforting routine, a path I could navigate with ease. But tonight, as I made my way through the quiet streets, a sense of anticipation lingered in the air, as if the night held a secret just waiting to be discovered. It was on a dimly lit street, one I'd traveled countless times before, that I spotted something out of place. There, in the soft glow of a distant streetlight, lay a scooter, its silhouette casting a long shadow on the pavement, and next to it, an unsettling shape that my brain struggled to make sense of. At first, I thought it might be a trick of the light, or perhaps some forgotten belongings. But as I drew closer, the reality of the situation became clear. It wasn't just a pile of clothes or a bag left behind. It was a person, motionless, in the shadow of the scooter. My heart skipped a beat and a cold rush of adrenaline surged through me. I couldn't just drive by, not without making sure they were okay. Pulling over, I reached for my phone with shaky hands, the weight of the situation settling in. Calling for help was the only thing that made sense, but as I dialed, I couldn't shake the feeling that this night was about to take a turn I was wholly unprepared for. As I stepped out of my car, the cool night air hit me, making me shiver slightly. The quiet of the night was now pierced by the sound of my own footsteps as I cautiously approached the figure next to the scooter. My phone was clutched tightly in one hand, ready to call for help, but part of me still hoped there was some explanation that didn't involve someone being hurt. The closer I got, the more details became clear. The scooter was on its side, as if it had been hastily abandoned. The person lying on the ground wasn't moving, and for a moment, I froze, unsure of what to do next. "Are you okay?" I called out, my voice sounding loud in the silence. There was no response, just the faint sound of distant traffic. Swallowing my fear, I dialed 911, explaining the situation in a rush. "Please hurry," I urged, giving them my location. The dispatcher's calm voice was a small comfort, but waiting alone in the dark, with a stranger's fate hanging in the balance, felt like an eternity. I kept a safe distance, remembering all the advice I'd heard about not moving injured people. My eyes scanned the street, hoping to see the emergency lights any second. That's when I heard it. Voices, approaching fast. A group of people turned the corner, talking and laughing, unaware of the scene they were about to stumble upon. As they saw the scooter and their friend on the ground, their laughter died. Panic took its place, their voices rising in confusion and fear. They looked from their friend to me and back again, trying to piece together what had happened. I stepped forward, wanting to explain that help was on the way, but the sight of me seemed to ignite a spark of anger among them. "You did this," one of them accused, pointing at me. The shock of the accusation left me momentarily speechless. I had stopped to help, and now I was being blamed. "No, I just found him like this," I stammered, but my words seemed to evaporate in the cold night air. They didn't seem convinced, their faces twisted in a mix of grief and suspicion. I realized then that this situation could quickly get worse. I was alone, with a group of upset and possibly angry people, and the only thing I had to protect myself was my truth, and my hope that the ambulance would arrive soon. My heart was racing, every beat echoing loudly in my ears as I faced the group's mounting anger. "I didn't do anything," I tried again, my voice stronger this time, but it was like speaking to a storm. Their accusations continued to fly, each word a dagger of blame and suspicion. The night air, once merely cool, now felt ice cold as fear took hold. I stepped back, creating space between us, my mind racing for a way to diffuse the tension. "Look, "I called for help," I said, holding up my phone to show them the screen. The call to emergency services still connected. For a moment, there was a flicker of doubt in their eyes, a pause in their anger. But it was fleeting. "Why should we believe you?" one of them challenged, his stance aggressive. The situation was spiraling out of control, every second stretching out endlessly as I searched for the right words to convince them of my innocence. Just then, the distant sound of sirens began to pierce the night, growing louder with each passing moment. Relief washed over me, followed by a wave of anxiety about how the emergency responders would view the scene. Would they believe my story? The group turned towards the sound, their anger momentarily forgotten in the face of approaching help. As the flashing lights rounded the corner, casting blue and red shadows on the street, the group's hostility didn't vanish, but it lessened, overshadowed by the urgency of their friend's condition. Paramedics jumped out of the ambulance, quickly assessing the situation as police officers began to ask questions. I recounted everything from the moment I found the person by the scooter, emphasizing my immediate call for help. The officers listened, nodding, taking notes. The group, still tense, watched the paramedics work, their earlier aggression replaced by concern for their friend. The ambulance left with the injured person, and the police finished their questioning. I was free to go, the officers satisfied with my explanation. But as I walked back to my car, the weight of the night's events hung heavily on my shoulders. I had stopped to help, and for a moment, found myself in a nightmare of misunderstanding and fear. Driving home, the streets were silent again, but the quiet no longer offered comfort. I knew I'd done the right thing, but the fear and accusations had left a mark. I resolved to always be cautious, but reaffirmed my commitment to help when needed. The world can be unpredictable, and kindness is often met with suspicion, but I wouldn't let fear dictate my actions. Tonight was a stark reminder of the delicate thread that connects us all, the fine line between help and harm. I'm Sarah, a 30-year-old nurse who's just wrapped up another night shift. You know, one of those shifts that feels like it's never going to end. I love my job, really, I do. Helping people is my calling, but tonight, I'm just wiped. All I want is to kick off my shoes, crawl into bed, and forget about the world for a few hours. As I walk through the hospital's parking lot, pulling my jacket tighter around me, I can't help but notice how empty it feels. It's eerie, with the streetlights flickering on and off. I always feel there's going to be a weirdo around the corner. That's when I spot him, a guy standing next to a car, looking all sorts of frustrated as he fumbles with the lock. He's got this vibe that sets off alarm bells in my head. Something about him just doesn't sit right with me. He catches sight of me and calls out, "Hey, can you help me? My car won't open." His voice sends a shiver down my spine. I remember what my mom always told me, trust your gut. And right now my gut is screaming at me to keep walking. "Sorry, I can't help," I say, quickening my pace. I don't look back, even though I can feel his eyes on me. Once I'm safely in my car, I lock the doors immediately, take a deep breath, and try to shake off the unease. But as I drive away, I can't escape the feeling that tonight, the darkness is heavier than usual. And little did I know, my night was about to get even more complicated. I'm on the road, trying to focus on the drive home. The streets are quieter than usual, it's just me and the road, or so I think. But then, I catch a glimpse of something in my rearview mirror. A pair of headlights, far back but definitely there. At first, I tell myself it's just another late-night driver. But as I turn left, the car behind me does the same. When I turn right, it mirrors my actions. My heart starts to beat faster. This can't be a coincidence. I try to calm myself down. Maybe they're just going the same way, I whisper, trying to believe it. But with every turn I take, the car stays with me, like a shadow. My mind races back to the man in the parking lot. Could it be him? No. That's crazy. But the thought sticks. and I can't shake it off. I decide to test my theory. I make a sudden turn without signaling, then another quick turn. The car follows each time. Panic sets in. This is no coincidence. I'm being followed. What does this person want from me? My imagination goes wild with scary possibilities. I know I can't lead this person to my house. I have to lose them, or at least find help. My eyes scan the road, searching for any place that might be open. A gas station, a convenience store, anything. But the roads seem deserted, making me feel even more alone. Then, I remember a 24-hour convenience store a few miles ahead. If I can make it there, maybe I can get help. Or at the very least, there will be witnesses around. I grip the steering wheel tighter, my knuckles turning white, and press on the gas. The store is my best shot at safety, and I need to get there fast. The car behind me keeps pace, but I don't let it scare me off course. I keep my eyes on the road, focusing on getting to that convenience store. Just a few more minutes, I tell myself, hoping and praying that I make it there safe. Finally, the bright lights of the convenience store come into view. My heart is pounding as I pull into the parking lot, the following car still on my tail. I park near the front, under the brightest light I can find. I glance in the rearview mirror and see the other car pulling in a few spots away. My breath catches in my throat. This is it, I think. I have to be brave. I don't wait. I grab my phone, ready to dial for help if I need to, and jump out of the car, making a beeline for the store's entrance. I'm hoping the person following me will back off if there are witnesses. But when I look back, I see him getting out of his car too. He's not the scary guy from the parking lot though. This person looks normal, worried even. But I've learned tonight that appearances can be deceiving. As I reach the door, I turn to face him, ready to scream for help if he tries anything. "Why are you following me?" I demand, trying to sound braver than I feel. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you," he says, holding his hands up as if to show he means no harm. "I saw someone messing with your car back at the hospital. I wanted to make sure you got home safe." I'm stunned. This wasn't what I expected. "Messing with my car? What do you mean?" He explains how he saw a figure lurking around my car, doing something near the tires. He couldn't see clearly, but it worried him enough to follow me just in case. He kept his distance to avoid scaring me, but obviously that plan didn't work out too well. My fear slowly starts to turn into relief, mixed with a bit of embarrassment. I thought you were trying to harm me," I admit, feeling my cheeks warm up. "I understand. I would have been scared too in your place," he says, "but I couldn't just leave without making sure you were okay." We go inside the store together, and I call the police. They arrive quickly and go back with me to check on my car. Sure enough, they find that someone had tampered with the tires, but thanks to this stranger's vigilance, a potentially dangerous situation was avoided. As the police handle the situation, I thank the man who followed me. "I'm sorry I misjudged you," I say. "No worries. I'm just glad you're safe," he replies with a smile. Driving home after that, I reflect on the night's events. It was a roller coaster of fear, suspicion, and ultimately, gratitude. I learned that sometimes, help comes in unexpected forms, and not everyone is out to get you. But most importantly, I learned to never ignore my gut feeling. It's what kept me safe in the end.